You're listening to Results Driven Organizations Podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Tanya Lowe.
Hello, you're listening to Season 5 of the Results Driven Organizations Podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, using my results-driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences. I help organizations develop their best-kept secret, their human capital. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development, and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. Our guest today is Shamiah Woods Kerney, Deputy City Administrator for the City of Baltimore. Shamiah is a distinguished public servant whose career exemplifies leadership at the intersection of governance, equity, and accountability. Her most recent role prior to this was Chief Recovery Officer of the Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs in Baltimore City, and prior to that, she served as Deputy Director of Performance Management in the Executive Office of the Mayor for Washington, D.C. Shamiah evaluated critical service delivery to district residents and businesses while championing equity in budgeting decisions. Her impressive government service includes her role as a senior analyst at the United States Government Accountability Office, where she conducted rigorous program audits and evaluations for Congress on vital federal initiatives spanning housing, disaster assistance, insurance, small business support, and financial systems oversight. Beyond her professional accomplishments, she has remained deeply committed to community service, holding leadership positions in multiple organizations. A graduate of Clark Atlanta University, Shamiah holds both a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's in public administration with a concentration in community and economic development. She's a proud member of the one and only Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Shamiah, welcome to RDO.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. We've been trying to get you here for a long time, and I'm so glad you're here. And before we jump into this juicy discussion, I just want to say the perspectives and insights shared during this interview are based solely on Shamiah's personal experiences and professional journey. They represent her individual viewpoints and observations gathered throughout her career in public service at both the federal and local government levels. So these opinions should not be interpreted as representing the official position of any past or present organization which she has been affiliated. So with that being said, let's get down to it. So Shamiah, your career spans both the federal government at the Government Accountability Office and local government with Baltimore and DC. All of these environments operate with fundamentally different stakeholder dynamics. How would you compare the leadership approaches needed in these distinct contexts? You know, what personal adjustments proved most valuable to you as you kind of navigated the space of local government and federal government?
An interesting question. I would say that in federal government, where I worked mostly in the policy space, really dealing with policies that impacted everyday individuals, but you don't necessarily get an opportunity to see the impact.
Yeah.
Federal government is a lot more hierarchical, and so it may take some time to be able to see change. And if you're anything like me, who considers myself to be a change agent, sometimes that can be challenging. So the leadership approaches in that space, number one, is really patience. Patience with being able to understand that everything won't always happen in your time and sometimes may not happen at all. but that you should not be discouraged from speaking truth to power in any situation and in any opportunity in which you have to do so. And so I think that patience is probably one of the things that I had to learn the most in the federal government space, as well as hierarchy. Um, if you're really somebody who does try to or consider themselves to be a change agent, sometimes, the buck the system approach is what you really want to do.
Yes.
But you don't always have an opportunity to do that because sometimes you will shut doors by not kind of adhering to the hierarchy. So understanding when the hierarchy was important versus when there were times when you really could buck the system, I think is also a leadership approach. Timing is everything. Reading the room is everything. Understanding the players is everything. And so really have to learn to do that in that space. Local government, there are many of the same rules that apply, but I would say that local government, you absolutely have more contact with people that you are impacting from the decisions that you make. I was at a conference recently, and what really resonated with me is that today's choices is tomorrow's impact. And so who you impact is extremely important. And so I think the leadership lesson there is understanding your power to impact, understanding your stakeholders and your audience, because certainly as public servants, we have a perspective that sometimes doesn't always align with those that we seek to serve. And so understanding where those things might diverge and how you tackle whenever that situation occurs, I think is a leadership approach. I often say that my approach is not the ivory tower. Yes, my office is in City Hall, but I am not a public servant that sits high and looks low. And so my goal is always to serve people and to be among people. And so making myself available so that people know who I am is always important to me as well, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in titles and position, but it doesn't matter if people don't know and respect you, or don't feel like you're actually advocating for them in the positions or at the tables that you have a seat at. So I think being among people and understanding the gravity and the responsibility that comes along with that is also part of the leadership approach.
Oh, wow. Shamiah, you just dropped some amazing gems. And I hope that people who are listening, who are new in government, I come from government as well, and you hit the nail on the head. Patience. I came from the buck the system area where they say it's better to apologize and ask for forgiveness versus ask for permission.
Right.
And that, so you have to weigh that very carefully. And then, understanding the hierarchy, which is something I think is very, very important and very beneficial to the younger generation coming into government, is understanding that there is a traditional system in place and you can make changes, but they're not going to move as fast as you like. And then reading the room and understanding the stakeholders, all priceless gems. So if you're listening to this podcast, go back and make this list and ask yourself, where do I need to adjust in my transition? I want to shift gears for a second and talk about innovation. COVID-19, during that pandemic, it really caused not only corporate America to innovate and really get into this digital space, but it caused government to look at doing some things that have never been done before, as far as working from home and using more technology. And my question, Shamiah, is how can leaders create a culture and a capacity for rapid innovation without there being a crisis? COVID-19 set that tone, but how can we make that, this is the culture, we're government, for government, because I think it's happening in other places, but how can we do that within government?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't know that we can do it in government. And this is why I say that.
Yeah.
I say that because government is not often extended grace. Government does not get an opportunity to try and fail. Government doesn't get the opportunity to try something, and if it doesn't work, make the tweaks or make the program redesigns and deploy it again. That's not what happens. What ends up happening is if there is a government failure, it becomes news, it becomes social media criticism, it becomes unhappy taxpayers. The government is wasting taxpayer dollars. We're supposed to be good stewards of the financial resources in which we are entrusted. And so innovation typically means that we are allowing an opportunity to try something and to see if it works. Government does not do that. And we don't do that for the reasons that I just mentioned, right? Because our taxpayers are not going to be happy with anything fails. I'll give you an example. With the American Rescue Plan Act funds that Baltimore City received, they started a program called Behind the Wall. Behind the Wall is an opportunity for incarcerated individuals to work with city government and to work with the criminal justice system to make money while they are still incarcerated. They withhold some of that money to provide to those individuals upon their release. The initial projections for the program, we thought people would be really, really excited to have an opportunity to have some financial resources available to them upon their release. So our projections were the number of people that we thought we'd be able to assist per year. But what we ended up finding out was that some of the jobs or the opportunities that were made available were not necessarily those that some incarcerated individuals wanted to engage in. They thought that the wages were not high enough. There were a myriad of reasons why the participation rate was lower than what we projected. The media, instead of focusing on the number of people that we did assist, right? Because in my opinion, as a public servant, if it was just one person that we helped financially to be able to start off on sound footing upon release, that was enough. But the media conversation was that our target was 900 people per year. We only assisted 150 people in the first year, and how this program was not successful. And so, again, if you ask those of us who were a part of the program design and really doing something that's a little bit the first of its kind, I don't know very many cities that are doing anything like this. That's innovation.
Yes.
But the conversation was not about, wow, this one-of-a-kind program that helped 150 people in its first year. It was this program that the city used with pandemic relief funding that didn't help as many people as they initially promised, is what the conversation was. And so how we get to innovation more in government is contingent upon how much grace we're willing to extend, right? How much opportunity are we willing to provide to government to be able to try things that could be beneficial in the long run. And again, it may take some dollars for us to be able to figure out the right way to do it, where it has the most impact and can be best leveraged. But it is totally contingent upon the grace that is given to government officials to be able to do that. And so until we get to a place of a space of grace, then you probably won't see as much innovation, and to your point, unless forced to do so. There are lots of people who still feel a way about the fact that there are some government activities that have still not returned fully to in-person. There are still some people that feel a way about some government services still being offered from home. But even in the absence of proving that those activities could still be done. Now, given there may be some situations where the productivity is not what one would like, and maybe it is better when it's in person, but the point was that we proved that services could still be offered even if a person was not in office. And so if we were to invest more dollars into those activities, could we make it easier for residents? Could we stop people from having to come to a physical location to pay a bill or to do those things? Where are we introducing levels of convenience? And so there are still opportunities for us to maximize that. But again, it's completely contingent on the space that we provide and the grace that we give.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you for that, the breakdown of that answer. Government doesn't get the opportunity to fail. And you're so right, because it turns into this media, circus, if you will. And I love that you said, if only one person, if five people, right, were to go through this program, and that's a reduction in their recidivism, and so and then how much we're able to innovate depends on the grace that's being extended. And I believe that I believe, Shamiah, that's gonna change, because coming from government myself, there was the old guard, right? And so that's changing. And I don't know how fast it's changing within government, but there's got to be a mesh between this has been the standard formula, and the World of Work report is saying this, technology reports are saying this. This is where cuts are being made. These are the programs and the training that can help people to get better jobs, increase their income, or whatever the state is trying to do. There's got to be a balance between that, and it's all around innovation. I do training and development. I follow the trends on the world of work. Government is not outside of the world of work, but the number one thing is innovation, innovation, innovation. And so I think this is a great discussion for anyone listening who is within government or leadership within government, thinking about, you may not be able to expand on a huge level, but what are those incremental steps to at least create opportunities for innovation and creativity, as well as attract talent? Because that's what the talent is going to want. They're going to want to come in, and they may not come in understanding the patience of government. They're going to want to come in and grow. What would you tell a recent grad who's starting out in government around, balancing, I don't want to say the status quo, but balancing the status quo with innovation?
That eventually, at some point in time, everything has to change. In order for government to continue to be an employer of choice, it's going to have to provide the same flexibilities and opportunities that our private sector counterparts offer. And, we're being completely honest right now, the way that the government probably looks and appears to people is not probably a career choice that people are chasing, because there is so much uncertainty. And so we're going to have to balance our offerings and our innovation in order to be able to attract people to even want to come to government. If I think back, I never sought out to be a public administrator. You didn't talk about government in school. You talked about civics.
Right.
You need the mayor, you need the president, you need the governor. You didn't necessarily know that there were senior level executives who were running, stormwater, wastewater, transportation, trash pickup. You had literally no idea about the mechanics of government. And so now that is probably a little bit different than it was when I was in school, and people are seeing government more and understanding that it is an opportunity and a career path, we still have to make it attractive. And so for, young people who are young and newer people into the field of public administration or into government, the advice is always that things have to change, but sometimes you have to lead the change. And so if you're waiting on someone else to recognize what needs to be changed, that may not happen. And so sometimes you have to use your seat and your voice to be able to propel the change, but also understanding that patience is still important, because it may not be in your time, but you may change some minds to be able to move things to a certain direction that you're trying to move government to.
It's about planting those seeds, right? And so you have to be okay with being a farmer and not maybe
Mhm.
seeing your crops
Mhm.
within that time frame that you're there, but know that, oh, I planted those seeds, and to see them grow. Within that same vein, the Partnership for Public Service reports the agencies with formalized innovation career paths retain technical talent 42% longer than those without a clear advancement opportunity for innovators, right? Because you're gonna get them. You're gonna get those people that are the shining star and they're drawn to government for whatever reason. How should government leaders, or how should leadership design or redesign workforce development systems to attract and retain creative talent for this time?
Yeah, I think that there's already really good examples of that across government. I know that I'll just give a couple of examples for Baltimore City. We have
Mm-hmm.
an innovation fund, which is a small pot of funding that we make available to city agencies if they are willing to try to test something out to see how it will work. There's a document that we use so that they can share with us whether it's cost avoidance, cost savings. What are the things that we would expect to come into that would be more helpful to the residents that we seek to serve, or that would create some streamline some processes or create some efficiencies. It's not a whole lot of money, but it is an opportunity for agencies to share ideas with the administration about something that could work. And so again, being risk averse, we're not going to put a gazillion dollars into that fund, but it is a
Right.
can at least have a bit of a pilot program to see if it's promising enough to invest more dollars. We also have an innovation team that is embedded within our Office of Performance and Innovation. And so that team is very focused on looking at performance measures, looking at our policies, procedures. Are we getting the outcomes that we're seeking? And if not, why not? And then the other side of that is doing the research to see what are other people doing? What are other jurisdictions that are having success in a certain area? What are they doing? And how might we be able to tweak or make changes to those programs for it to benefit the city? In addition to that, we have a partnership with Bloomberg Philanthropies that has also funded some initiatives around innovation in the city. And so certainly governments have the opportunity to look at things like Bloomberg or other philanthropic opportunities to see where they might be able to use those funds to create innovation in their cities. Again, we're pretty risk averse, but philanthropy is always willing to partner with government for efficiencies or for new programs and new services. So those are opportunities also. So I think for governments, always looking at the opportunities for where you might be able to get funding to try new things is extremely important. The partnerships are valuable, whether it's the nonprofits or philanthropic organizations, because you won't always have the dollars and cents in city government, especially in this current economic climate, to be able to try new things. So partnering is the way to go when you're trying to implement innovation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just listening to what you're doing in Baltimore, these are innovative projects, an innovative fund, innovative team, philanthropic partnerships. I mean, that's a great place to start, because I think it's telling me, if I were a Gen Zer entering government today, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed with ideas, and I take them through the channels, that I'm not just told, hey, we don't do that here, or but here's a process. We may have to pilot it. It's not going to change overnight. I think these are very positive and encouraging steps toward innovation that can be replicated not only within government, but within other organizations as well. Having a system, having something in place. So I've got a question on non-traditional leadership I want to get your thoughts on. So there was an analysis that public sector organizations that identify and promote leaders from diverse backgrounds, and diverse backgrounds can be women, people who are, disabled with mental challenges. We know how to define diverse. Diverse is like a list of, the aging. What strategies can government organizations employ to identify and nurture the potential among employees who might not fit in traditional leadership profiles?
So I think one of the things that I've always found to be useful, and I don't necessarily know that I see enough of that anymore, affinity groups,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Making sure that there are support systems for the differing areas or characteristics of an individual so that they do feel supported. It is difficult at times because depending upon the situation, you might not always know what an employee kind of has going on. There are lots of kind of HR systems that don't always allow for you to completely understand and know your employees. But making sure that you have affinity groups so that people, however they self-identify, feel like they have support groups with other people they can talk with about whatever characteristic, challenge, issue. And then just as a boss, having a very open door policy, I think is extremely important as well. I know one of the things that I do for my team is I have standing one-on-ones with every one of my team members. It's 15 minutes for you to come talk to me about anything, and it doesn't have to be work related. That is for them to know that I am engaged, that I care about what is happening with them, both personally and professionally. And you don't have to talk, right? So if you decide that you want to cancel that month, that's absolutely fine. But I continue and want them to know that there is an open door for you to come talk to me, because if you are having a challenge, I do want to be able to assist you in, mitigating that challenge or providing you whatever supports might be necessary for you to be successful. And so, making sure that there is the open door policy, I think is still one of the primary approaches that anyone can have. And then also, again, just, affinity groups and creating opportunities, spaces and places for people to be able to talk and engage, I think are very, very important tools.
I agree. I'd love to see more of those within government. I didn't learn about affinity groups and things like that until after I left a government and was on one of our very first contracts with the Deloitte, and they have a group for everything. A variety of groups where people can get support on not only their leadership journey, but just their journey as an employee, and have a safe space for support and or training, and just to connect with other colleagues. So I definitely agree and would love to see more of that within government. I would assume that maybe it exists, but more informally.
I think it can be both.
Yeah.
I want people to feel like they have to meet like in secret,
Right.
right? You kind of pass a note,
But they do.
Right. I mean, this is true.
Yeah.
But you want to create the environment so people feel comfortable and open enough to be able to, engage more formally if they decide. But there's nothing wrong with informal meetings either. You just want to make sure that, I think sometimes in the informal ways, it's just, people who know each other might connect. When you do it more formally, it invites everyone and it gives everyone an opportunity to feel welcome and be involved if they decide. So it can.
Yeah, absolutely. Shamiah, so we've talked a lot about innovation and risk. In your opinion, you've been in leadership. I mean, you've been in leadership for a long time. What are some of the leadership skills that you believe that up and coming leaders need today? What are you seeing that's lacking that they need today? And let me just throw this in. And it doesn't matter. They don't have to be a new leader, right? Because again, the world of work is changing before our eyes. So it could be I'm doing air quotes, seasoned person, or it could be a new person. What are the leadership skills that are needed today?
So, I feel like some of this is more of the soft skills than the hard skills, right? Than I type 90 words per minute type skills. Humility, I feel like, is what we're missing a lot of. And that's at various levels of leadership. That's for new entrants, that's for seasoned professionals. Um, we are forgetting our humanity in spaces at times. And when you forget the humanity, you lose the humility. And being able to talk with people with grace, talking to people with respect. We are missing that. And don't get me wrong, I know that some of that also comes from what we're seeing, external to our workplace. It is on our televisions every day, depending upon what their news source is. But we have lost civility in the workplace, and it is sorely needed. We don't have to agree on everything, but there is a way to disagree while still seeing your colleague as a human, by still showing yourself to have humility, even if you are very seasoned, you are a subject matter expert, etc. There is still a way to engage with humility and seeing your colleague as a human being that doesn't, evolve into, chaotic conversations or, spaces where we're not respecting each other's, kind of subject matter expertise and knowledge base. And I think those things are more important even than the subject matter expertise. Have to get back to a space of like seeing and hearing each other. Not entering conversations with an opinion already. I mean, we all do, but still being willing to listen and to be swayed, right? Conversations, your way might not be the best way, but being open to hearing about it in a different way. Or, being able to compromise where, maybe there's a little, push and pull, there's a little give that we both have so that we get to a solution that meets our needs and meets the needs of those that we say that we want to serve. And so I think we are sorely missing that. It's getting harder and harder, I think, for most people to coexist in the workspace right now because so much of that is missing.
I absolutely agree. And soft skills continue to be at the top of the list from 2020 to current. Running neck and neck with critical thinking skills are right at the top of the list. Grace, respect, listening, not just hearing, but listening. I did a training last week with a group, and it's amazing how someone can, I don't agree with you, and they take that personally. And so this is a group of developing leaders. And so we talked about, if someone they can disagree with you, it doesn't mean that it's a personal attack. It's just, I don't agree with that idea. And maybe let's talk about some other ideas, open that door instead of shutting down. So I definitely believe there's a lot of room to grow around the soft skills. And then in public servant work, the humility and really thinking about the constituents, right? And so that being first and foremost. So there's a lot of work to do there. And you're right. I think with what we see on television, whether it's on the news or on social media, it shows up and people bring that to work with them. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Shamiah, what are you reading that we should be reading?
Oh, I just started Who Better Than You by Will Packer.
Ooh.
And It is a book that really talks about kind of having unabashed confidence and what that looks like and how sometimes how that shows up. Um, and I just think it's a good book to read because first of all, the question in and of itself, who better than you, right?
I love the question. I love the title.
Yes, I love that. This is a true story that I used to pray and ask God why he made me like I am. Because there were times in spaces and places where who I am wasn't accepted. And I wanted to be like other people so that I would be more accepted or feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
As my leadership journey has progressed, I have just come to a confidence with who and what I am and being okay when people are not okay with that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I won't pretend that I got there kind of overnight. It's been a work in progress. Um, so this book, I think, is just a reminder that it's okay to be confident. It's okay to speak, to use your voice. It's okay to use your seat at the table. It's okay to, have a healthy arrogance about who you are. I mean, I know I just spoke about, humility as well, but it's also okay to stand in your confidence. And it doesn't mean that you have to be someone different than who you are to exercise humility. So I don't want those things for anyone to mistake what I'm saying about the confidence level. But it's okay to be confident and to stand in who you are. Um, and it's unfortunate if people are unable to hear your message because they are so focused on the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am reading that as a reminder, especially in this space, being working with a mayor who is very confident in who he is, working in a city where the expectations are high, that we have to deliver for people. It is not lost on me either that we are in a predominantly Black city. And so in this city where there are Black faces who are in powers and positions of leadership, how we show up is important.
Absolutely.
And we're not always in spaces where we are the majority. And so how do we continue to show up when we aren't the majority, but to advocate for those that are? And so it's just a reminder to be confident. If not you, then who? So who better? Who better than Shamiah Kerney? So, Will Packer happens to listen to this, you can cut me a check. But if he's not, I just think for everyone who's listening, it's just a great read, and a little bit of a different book than what probably most leadership books tend to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's okay to be different. It's okay to not be like the crowd and stand in your confidence. And I'm gonna add it to my reading list. It's gonna actually become a part of our What Leaders Are Reading list, but I'm also going to share it with some of my clients because I'm sure people that are listening, depending on what level they are within any organization, sometimes struggle with that. That's one of the areas that I get specifically with women around how do I balance this confidence when I don't feel like I have the confidence? How do I show up in these big spaces and not not crush who I really am? Do I have to become someone else to show up? And so thank you for sharing that. I love that you shared that. And I think this is a great book, Who Better Than You by Will Packer. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've been chatting with Shamiah Woods Kerney, Deputy City Administrator for the City of Baltimore. Visit the show notes to see how to connect with Shamiah. While you're in the show notes, be sure to grab my newest book, The Power of One Question, and our 2025 Leaders Reading List. our special gift to you for being a valuable listener. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. For all resources mentioned today, guest contact information, Dr. Tanya's results-driven books, and your free gift, visit the show notes. We're dedicated to helping you create results-driven transformation. Until next time.